Here is a few myths about radios that I would love to point out. How's it going, guys? Cory the Random Guy here with you on this very frigid cold night. In case you guys are wondering about the title. Radio myths. There's a lot of people that follow my channel that know what these radio myths are, but for those of you who are new, you guys may not know. So we're going to go over 5 myths about radios. And you know what? Maybe, even to the newcomers, maybe you guys have even heard of these myths, but we're going to find out which ones are fact and which ones are fiction. Without further ado, let's get into this. I'm going to start out with myth number 1. CB radios can reach 100 miles. In a sense, yes and no. CB radios are limited by their power. 4 watts on AM and FM, 12 watts single sideband. Now, there is a way to reach over 100 miles with a CB radio. You have to have a good antenna, whether it's a vertical or a beam or a dipole, whichever way you want. And then the conditions have to be right in order to shoot skip or propagation. What basically that means is that your signal will bounce off the atmosphere and go wherever the propagation is going. Just like today, I made a contact on the western side of the United States and the eastern side of the United States. In reality, you're looking at maybe 5-10 miles from radio to radio. And that all depends on terrain, weather, and all that stuff. Because for some reason, HF signals are so susceptible to interference and different things. 5-10 miles, really. So we're going to call this one busted. Myth number 2. More watts equals unlimited range. When I saw this myth, I actually started laughing. I'm like, no, doubling your wattage doesn't double your range. The reality is it depends on your terrain, your antenna height. CB radio runs on a 27 megahertz frequency, 11 meter, or if you really want to translate that, 36 foot wave. That can be susceptible to any sort of interference. Doesn't really do very good going over mountains and stuff like that. Just because you double your wattage or triple or quadruple does not mean that you're going to get out further. You know, you've got to look at everything. You've got to look at your weather, your terrain, your height of your antenna, the quality of the antenna, and coax and radio. So all of that stuff makes myth number 2 busted. So let's move on to myth number 3. Ham radio is only for nerds and preppers. We're going to call that one busted too, right off the bat. Ham radio is used by storm chasers, astronauts, even disaster relief, and hobbyists alike. Just because ham radio is more popular for backup radio communications doesn't mean that it's only for nerds and preppers, okay? A lot of preppers have, ham radio licenses and stuff like that. They practice all the time for emergency situations, which is perfectly fine. Honestly, I think all of us need to do it, whether you have CB, your GMRS, even if you're using MERS. Because MERS, you can have a detachable antenna and stuff like that. Ham radio, in reality, is actually a powerful tool for emergency comms, not just hobbies. And that's exactly right, and CB is the same way. GMRS, MERS, FRS even, those things may not be going very far, but, hey, you can still use it. So let's move on here. Myth number 4. Walkie-talkies work anywhere. Now, walkie-talkies that we are referring to is your run-of-the-mill consumer walkie-talkies that you can get from, like, Walmart, Target, etc. They are limited by obstacles and interference. Now, let me clear something up real quick. FRS and GMRS runs on a UHF signal, okay? UHF is a little bit better about penetrating through walls and trees and stuff like that versus VHF. Okay, VHF kind of doesn't really like going through that sort of thing. We're going to call this one busted because at the end of the day, FRS and GMRS rely on line of sight. If you're in an urban area, you're looking at maybe a half a mile to 1 mile realistic. Okay, so guys, keep that in mind. Last but not least, myth number 5. You do not need a license for GMRS or ham. Definitely call this one busted. Ham radios do require a license, but you have to take a test. You have to study the test, and they have, I think it's like 3 or 4 different tiers. You guys comment below if I got that right or wrong. But GMRS, you pay the government, you get yourself a call sign, and there's no test. GMRS is the same thing as FRS. They have the same exact frequencies. It's channels like 15 through 22 GMRS uses for repeater channels. You have to do the offset, you have to do PL tones, and all that fun stuff. There is a couple of radio services out there that do not require a license, and that's FRS and MERS. MERS is just a 5-channel deal. Runs on a VHF. Really just like 154 megahertz or 151 megahertz or something like that. And then, of course, your FRS runs on the same thing as GMRS. Channels 1 through 22. You can set your PL privacy tones so that you don't hear anything else except for the other 2 radios talking. In conclusion, did I miss any myths? Let me know in the comments, because I'd love to know if I missed any myths. So all 5 myths, they're all busted, man. Don't get discouraged over this. Really don't. You got to do your research on the type of radio that you want for emergency comms. It all depends on your situation, and I've said that in a few videos already. I hope you enjoyed this video, and let me know in the comments below if you guys want to see any more videos like this. Until next time, see ya.